Hey guys, this is Coach Matt with Lifelong Recovery. In this video, I'm going to talk about achieving peace. So peace is something that obviously all of us want. Not a lot of people actually achieve long-lasting peace, right? Especially if you're someone that's dealing with mental health issues like I have. I've struggled obviously with addiction, which probably did some long-term damage to my mental health. So achieving peace for a lot of people, it's something you're not going to snap your fingers and just have peace, right? It's something that is a long-term process, something you have to keep working on a daily basis. So the first thing that I want to mention, one of the biggest things that helps someone achieve peace is having a clear conscience. So when I was working in treatment, people would come in and they would just newly be getting off of substances, right? And so a lot of times they would depend on that substance to help them sleep, right? So inevitably these people would have terrible time sleeping, and I went through the same thing where I had severe insomnia when I first stopped drinking and using. So one of the biggest things to help with that is having a clear conscience. Okay, so I would always tell them, look, clearing your conscience is the best sleep medication, right? And in order to do that, the first thing you have to understand is that you can't change a single second of anything that happened in the past, right? So have to be able to let go of the past to focus on the present and the future. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't go and make amends and do things to help clear your conscience from things in the past. That's very useful, right? But understand that there's nothing I can do to go back and change anything that I've done in the past, right? So the second thing I would say is consciously live by the golden rule. So everybody knows the golden rule, I'm sure. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? But how many people actually practice that and think about this on a regular basis, right? So really thinking about, how would I want this person to treat me? What can I do for someone else that I would want them to do for me? So really thinking about this on a daily basis and trying to live by the golden rule, not just say, hey, that's a good idea, but actually put it into practice on a daily basis. The other thing I would say is live by the reverse golden rule. So a lot of people don't think about this, but remember, if you're wanting someone, if you're thinking about how can I treat someone the same way that I would want them to treat me, well, you also have to take into account that I don't want to be around people who aren't treating me the way that I would treat them, or I know I should treat them. Does that make sense? So making sure you have those boundaries, not allowing toxic people into your life, not allowing yourself to be a doormat, having respect for yourself, standing up for yourself. There's a really good quote that I actually saw on Reddit of all things, but it said, do no harm, take no shit. And I think that's a really good way to live your life. Just living by this principle of, I'm not here to manipulate other people, I'm not here to do harm to other people, but also I don't let other people do harm to me. If they are doing harm to me, then I do the best that I can to put boundaries up, cut them out if possible, or at least put some distance between them and myself. The next thing I would say is work on freedom from resentment and anger. So I've talked about this in the past in my videos. This is a big struggle for me, especially with anger. I have anger pop up in lots of different ways. I think a lot of it is from stress. So this is something that I really have to work on. So with resentment, if you find yourself resenting a certain person, a group of people, an organization, your company, whatever, all these things, sometimes that resentment, it's warranted, but it's not doing anything to help your peace of mind, right? So there's a quote from Buddha that I really like that applies to this. He said that having a resentment is like holding on to a burning coal with the intent of throwing it at somebody else. You're the one who's getting burned, right? So something that they say in 12-step groups is resentments are like drinking poison, expecting the other person to die. So it's this concept of, look, you are letting things stew in your head. Your resentment literally means like re-feeling. So you're basically stewing on and you're wallowing in this anger, this frustration, whatever it is, and it's literally ruining your peace of mind. right? So do your best to let go of anger, to let go of resentment and work on anger. And another thing with this is practicing acceptance. If I have resentment towards people in my work, part of it, you got to work on not having that resentment. Part of it is I may not be able to change my situation, or it's going to take a lot of work for me to change my situation. So I have to decide, is it worth it? But if I can't do anything about my situation, then I need to just let it go, right? If I'm working with a group of people and there's people in the organization that are frustrating to me, I don't like the way that they do things, then I have to do my best to be able to let that go, maybe bring it to my boss's attention, whatever. But at some point, basically, there's going to be basically, okay, do I want to do anything about this? Do I want to change jobs? If not, then I need to just work on letting it go. And it can be the same way with lots of different situations, family, whatever, right? So, what can I do? And if I can't do anything, then I need to just let it go. Another thing with resentment and anger is try to understand other people's perspective on a daily basis. A lot of times what happens is we don't think of other people as human beings with their own experiences, their own traumas, their own thoughts, feelings, opinions, right? We just look at what they're doing that annoys us, pisses us off, makes us angry, whatever, right? So we're not it's not real common without some effort to just try and take other people's perspective and think about who they are as a person, what makes them tick. I was doing a coaching session last night and I was talking to this guy about someone that he was frustrated with at work, and we were going through why that might be, right? And then he brought up that she has a 6-year-old kid and this guy has a 5-year-old kid. And I was like, something that might help the situation, since you have to work with her on a daily basis, find some common ground. Talk to her about her kid. Talk to her about your kid. You just try and see her more as a human being instead of just an employee that makes your life harder. Another thing, do kind things without expecting anything in return. So I remember reading a book on happiness, and this Harvard psychologist was talking about how altruism was the number one producer of happiness. So doing something kind without expecting something in return they call it an intrinsic reward. It just makes you feel better, right? So do those things on a regular basis, and this will help you with that freedom from resentment, that freedom from anger. Because literally, some people, if you're anything like me, you're going to have to work on this on a regular basis for retraining your brain, because I allowed my brain to go off the rails for probably the first half of my life, if that makes sense. So I was thinking pretty negative thoughts, pretty pessimistic thoughts, pretty angry thoughts, all these things that were actively working against my peace of mind, not to mention my substance use. And the last thing I want to say is practice gratitude for little things. So gratitude is a huge thing when we're talking about peace. Everybody can practice more gratitude, and it doesn't matter what situation you're in. If you struggle with the act of gratitude, thinking about things that you can be grateful for on a regular basis, right? Then there's a good chance that maybe your situation is not the best, right? Maybe you've dealt with a lot of trauma. Maybe you've been treated unfairly, all these things, which is totally valid, and I'm not discounting that. But the fact remains, living in that kind of mindset is not going to serve you at all. Practicing gratitude, no matter how tough the situation, is going to help you achieve peace. Again, if anyone really struggles with this, I highly recommend the book by Viktor Frankl about the Holocaust, where he talks about finding gratitude in little things, like literally the colors in the dead fish in his soup bowl, just things that we would never think of. And this is literally while he was in a concentration camp during the Holocaust. So no matter the situation, you can find things to be grateful for. Think about these things on a daily basis. Look for things to be grateful for. I remember working with a guy and we were talking about gratitude, and I was saying, you can be grateful for little things: food, water, shelter, just things that we take for granted on a regular basis. And he was like, well, I guess it's hard for me to be grateful for these things because I've never not had them. And I'm like, well, that's even more reason to be grateful, right? You haven't had to deal with, if you had probably been stripped of those things, then you probably automatically would be grateful for them, right? Some of the most grateful people I've ever met are people that have done long stints in prison. No joke, because they know what it's like to not have the basic things that we take for granted, right? So that just naturally propelled them into the state of gratitude on a regular basis, which ultimately, when we're talking about substances, 100%. I've worked with a lot of people where their time in prison actually helped them stay clean and sober because they were practicing gratitude on a regular basis for these things that they were stripped of during their time in prison, and now that helps them be sober, right? It helps them stay sober. They don't want to lose those things again, right? So no matter your situation, you can always find something to be grateful for. And think about these things on a daily basis. Really try and practice gratitude on a daily basis. If you're a religious or a spiritual person, give thanks to your higher power or God for these things on a regular basis. That's going to help train your mind to just live in this state of gratitude. And that is hugely helpful for just having peace of mind. So guys, I hope these tips helped. If you like the video, please give it a like. Please share it if you think somebody else could benefit from it. If you want more videos like this on just mental well-being, freedom from substance abuse, recovery, please subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks.